Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace for us all. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, and kind regards. Good afternoon, His Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the series of events of the Trade Expo Indonesia 2021 Digital Edition, Trade, Tourism, and Investment Forum, with this year's theme, Reviving Global Trade Through Strengthening Regional Economic Partnership. Kindly allow me to introduce myself. I am Rahma Alia, and I'm very honored to be able to greet all of you, whether you are present here as well as joining us virtually. And I hope that all of you are in good health and always complying with health protocols. Before we proceed to the event today, allow me to extend my greetings to His Excellencies Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Lutfi, Deputy Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Jerry Sambuaga, and honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Through Trade, Tourism, and Investment Forum, the participants will obtain information and solutions on strategies in dealing with challenges and opportunities of international trade, tourism, and investment from speakers who are ministers of related sectors, especially after this pandemic. And ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome and see together the keynote speech which will be delivered by Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Lutfi. To Mr. Muhammad Lutfi, we welcome the time and place.
Excellency Minister of Trade and Industry of the Republic of Singapore, my friend, Mr. Gan Kim Yong, my friend also from the Philippines, His Excellency Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry of the Republic of the Philippines, Excellency Ramon M. Lopez, Honorable World Bank Managing Director for Development Policy and Partnerships, Ibu Mari Elka Pangestu, His Excellency Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic Indonesia, Pak Luhut Panjaitan, His Excellency Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs, Pak Erlangga Hartarto, Excellency Minister of Finance, Ibu Sri Mulyani, Excellency Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, Bapak Sandiaga Uno, Excellency Minister of Investment, Head of Indonesia Coordinating Board, Bapak Bahlil Lahadalia, Honorable Chairman of the Indonesia Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Pak Arsyad Rashid, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the 36th Trade Expo Indonesia for this year digital version. It is such a great pleasure to welcome all of you today, officials, business, investors, certainly Captain of Industries, and thank you for taking part in this virtual trade forum. I hope this forum can generate discussions about challenges, opportunities, and ideas in global trade, tourism, and investment sectors. We also hope this forum can provide the latest policy updates, informations, and strategies in those three sectors. Excellency Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, we witness how COVID-19 pandemic hit the global market for the last 2 years. It has fundamentally affected all nations, changed the way we live and work, and reshape policies in all sectors. And I want to believe that we have seen the worst of it. Now it is time for us to recover and recover together. Last year, Indonesia registered one of the lowest economic growth in the history. We were down by 2.07%. Today, I'm pleased that our economic growth in the second quarter of 2021 was very encouraging at the growth of 7.07%. And we are confident that we will close the third quarter of 2021 with a strong growth of 4 to 5.7%. Indonesia trade performance even performed better. We have registered trade surplus for the last 17 months, and we also registered a new record high for monthly export in the value of $21.42 billion in the month of August. Overall, 2021 has been a good year for Indonesia trade sector. Until September 2021, our total export increased by 40.38% year on year. Our total import also increased by 34.27%, and our total trade increased by 37.51% year on year. Certainly, we can build a strong optimism that this is a perfect momentum for our economic recovery. Excellency Minister, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned in G20 meeting last week, I believe that the policy coherence between trade, investment, and industrial areas will significantly benefit global economic recovery and development. Trade and investment embedded in global and regional value chain are powerful tools to leverage industrializations, increase growth, and create conditions for a sustained growth, notably the post-COVID-19 pandemic. We need to ensure that international trade and investment can effectively contribute to global economic recovery. Today is a good momentum for all of us to show our ability to work together, not towards deteriorated trade, but improved trade. Therefore, Indonesia will continue to negotiate trade agreements with like-minded countries, big and small, in our quest for a better positions in a global value chain which is being challenged now by many pressing issues. Currently, we are in the process of negotiating 23 trade deals on the bilateral and regional front. On the 1st of November 2021, we will enter the implementation stage of our Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with EFTA countries, namely Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. This will be Indonesia's first trade agreement with European countries. Another example is the ongoing negotiation of the Indonesia-United Arab Emirates Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. The launch of the IUAE-CEPA negotiation took place in September 2021. Both Indonesia and the United Arab Emirates have committed to concluding the agreement within only 1 year by 2022. The point I wish to make is that Indonesia's trade strategy is very clear. We will continue our reforms in trade to become more integrated in the world economy. Indonesia is for an open economy in a fair and win-win manner to get better market access and investment. In this regard, the Trade Forum this year will take place under the theme of reviving global trade through strengthening regional economic partnerships. Excellency Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, let me finish by inviting all parties to take advantage of the series of Trade Forum activities through enhancing cooperation in trade, tourism, and investment in the 36th year of Indonesia Trade Expo. I wish you all a very successful event. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, for your speech, as we know that Indonesia has gone through a very optimistic economic as well as export sectors throughout this year. And now, although Indonesia is impacted by the pandemic, it's also being impacted and being felt by other countries, especially our neighboring countries. Now, Singapore is one of our very close neighbors of Indonesia in the Southeast Asia region, and both countries have also deep economic and business ties. Now, having through the dynamic phase of the pandemic, would like to hear Singapore's latest key policies towards growth of international trade, tourism, and investment. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us listen to keynote from the Minister of Trade and Industry of the Republic of Singapore, Mr. Gan Kim Yong. Now to Mr. Gan Kim Yong, we welcome the time and place.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank His Excellency, Minister Lutfi, for the invitation to speak at the Trade, Tourism and Investment Forum. The theme for this year's forum is Reviving Global Trade through Strengthening Regional Economic Partnership. Singapore and Indonesia continue to face a global environment fraught with uncertainty and challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to weigh heavily on our economies, with the resurgence of cases around the world and ever-present threat of more virulent strains emerging. At the same time, the global economy is facing fundamental shifts resulting from issues such as the geopolitical contestation between the US and China, climate change, and digitalization. However, where there are challenges, there are also opportunities. As close neighbors and partners, Singapore and Indonesia must work together and with the rest of ASEAN to uncover these opportunities and position our economies to recover and grow. Indonesia and Singapore share long-standing bilateral ties that are underpinned by strong economic cooperation. Even during the pandemic, our bilateral and economic ties have remained strong. We achieved several notable milestones over the past year, including the entry into force of the Singapore-Indonesia Bilateral Investment Treaty and the Avoidance of Double Taxation Agreement. Based on advanced estimates, the Singapore economy expanded by 6.5% on a year-on-year basis in the third quarter of 2021. This brought GDP growth in the first 3 quarters of this year to 7.5% year-on-year. Barring a major setback in the global economy, the Singapore economy is on track to expand by 6 to 7% for the full year, following the sharp 5.4% contraction last year. On Singapore's priorities for economic recovery, allow me to share 3 points. First, Singapore is a small, globally connected economy, and our strategic position as a business hub depends on our connectivity with the world. We have placed strong emphasis in facilitating supply chain connectivity amidst the pandemic. The Singapore government remains committed to keep the flow of essential and critical supplies during and beyond the pandemic. We have adopted a multi-pronged strategy involving import diversification, local production, and stockpiling to secure essential supplies. Second, Singapore continues to focus on new emerging areas crucial to economic growth, such as harnessing the potential of digitalization and making sustainability a key focus of our economic agenda. The pandemic has accelerated the speed of digital transformation and reinforced the imperative for businesses and individuals to be digitally ready. According to the Economy Southeast Asia 2020 report by Google, Bain, and Temasek, Indonesia's digital economy is currently the region's fastest growing, with an expected valuation of US $124 billion by 2025. There is scope for Singapore and Indonesia to work together to facilitate the growth of the digital economy. Through digitalization, we can help micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to be internationally competitive. Singapore launched the Green Plan 2030, a national agenda on sustainable development and our roadmap to realize our commitments under the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and Paris Agreement. The Green Plan cuts across all sectors, including infrastructure, clean energy, and research and innovation. It will strengthen our resilience and create new opportunities in the green economy. Singapore is also interested to work together with like-minded economies on sustainable development and climate change-related initiatives, such as green financing and carbon credits trading. Third, on the regional front, the recent 53rd ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting and related meetings in September 2021 reaffirmed ASEAN's commitment and highlighted our continuous efforts to strengthen regional economic integration and maintain free and open trade with our regional and global partners. Singapore strongly supports a free, open, and rules-based multilateral trading system. These are important to help us recover from the pandemic and position ourselves for future growth. Singapore looks forward to continue working with Indonesia to strengthen regional and multilateral institutions, including ASEAN and the World Trade Organization, so that they continue to support our economic growth and improve the lives of our communities. Singapore and Indonesia have weathered many crises in the past. There remains much potential for us to deepen our bilateral economic cooperation and seize new opportunities together. I'm confident that as we navigate through the current crisis together, we will be able to emerge stronger. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation by Mr. Gan Kim Yong from Singapore. Now, ladies and gentlemen, despite the pandemic, Indonesia remains persistent in holding Trade Expo Indonesia 2021 Digital Edition. The same kinds of efforts are also taken by other countries, such as the Philippines, to revive its trade, tourism, as well as its investment. So now, ladies and gentlemen, to know further on this matter, let us hear Secretary of Department of Trade and Industry of the Republic of the Philippines, Mr. Ramon M. Lopez, for his presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I wish to extend our friends and partners in Indonesia, especially Minister Muhammad Lutfi of the Ministry of Trade, for inviting the Philippines as one of the speakers in the Trade, Tourism, and Investment Forum of this year's digital edition of Trade Expo Indonesia. It is encouraging to see that despite the limitations due to the pandemic, both our countries have maximized the benefits of going digital, particularly in trade promotion activities like the Trade Expo Indonesia. In the Philippines, the same is being done in our export promotion signature events, such as the Manila Fame and IFEX Digital Edition. Although separated by seas, Indonesia and the Philippines are very close neighbors with similar culture and values. And together we account for more than half of ASEAN's population, which clearly provides an impetus for more collaboration and cooperation on areas of mutual interest, such as e-commerce, digital economy, and halal. The Philippine trade and investment policies are basically people-centered and aimed at promoting inclusive growth. We adhere to an open market policy and sustainable development, and will remain a strong mover of an open, free, fair, transparent, inclusive, rules-based, and non-discriminatory trading system. We are one of the few countries that did not impose any export restrictions and even removed import licensing requirements and lowered tariff rates on key agricultural products like rice and meat in the time of this global pandemic, because we are deeply committed to keeping our market open for trade and investment. Thus, we continue to strengthen initiatives that ensure unhampered flow of goods and services. We are also working towards the full implementation of the RCEP, or the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, as it is now with our Senate for concurrence. Our President, Rodrigo Roa Duterte, has already ratified the RCEP. He also highlighted the significance of RCEP in his talk before the ASEAN Summit, saying the agreement will bolster regional economic integration and strengthen supply chain connectivity to boost our post-pandemic economic recovery. Our vision toward economic recovery is anchored on a strategy called REBUILD, and it stands for revitalizing businesses, investments, livelihoods, and domestic demand, revitalizing consumption to boost demand, and empowering production capacities such as those in agriculture, industry, and services to meet the recovery in demand. This strategy also provides support in particular to the micro, small, and medium enterprises. One of the growth engines of our country's economy today is e-commerce. Amid the pandemic, e-commerce adoption in the Philippines has grown from 70% in 2019 to 76% in 2020, and now 80.2% in 2021. Our country's data center market has also grown considerably, as this has led us to launch a campaign highlighting the Philippines as next strategic hyperscaler hub in the Asia-Pacific region. Domestically, the Philippines has been working to facilitate greater adoption of the digital economy through initiatives that include the development of an e-commerce roadmap, as well as current legislative efforts such as an Internet Transactions Act, the ratification of the UN Convention on Electronic Communications in Electronic Contracts, partnerships with the private sector to facilitate onboarding programs, and capacity building activities for our micro SMEs. Our key government services have likewise gone digital, such as the Integrated Registration and Information System and the Business Name Registration Next Generation System. In line with economic recovery efforts, we have recently passed the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises, or CREATE law, which, among others, reduces corporate income tax rate from 30% to 25%. Reforms are also underway to further enhance the investment regime in the country. The Philippines recognizes also that halal is a must in entering the Indonesian market and is aware that Indonesia is currently implementing the Halal Law number 33/2014, which requires products entering the country to be halal certified. Thus, we wish to express our appreciation to Indonesia's Halal Product Assurance Organizing Agency for your support and participation in a number of halal-related webinars we have conducted to inform Philippine exporters of the halal regime in Indonesia. Meanwhile, the tourism sector in many countries has been one of the worst-hit sectors in this pandemic. Our tourism sector is no exception, and we have implemented recovery strategies that include a vaccination program for tourism workers and a tourism response and recovery program. Just recently, we have eased our quarantine guidelines for fully vaccinated individuals coming from green or yellow list countries. Lastly, the Philippines stands committed to the Memorandum of Understanding we have signed with Indonesia on investment promotion cooperation in 2020. The MOU includes the exchange of investment information such as policies, regulations, and investment licensing procedures, as well as potential investment opportunities, including the realization of foreign investment from each country. It also covers promotional cooperation and investment facilities from the Philippines to Indonesia and vice versa, as well as working together in conducting business meetings such as seminars, roadshows, and business matchmaking meetings. Again, together, let us work to build a more vibrant and responsive economic partnership. Thank you at mabuhay tayong lahat.
Much, Mr. Ramon M. Lopez, speaking on behalf of the Department of Trade and Industry of the Republic of the Philippines. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is true that COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our Indonesia's economy in various sectors. But how about the investment sector? To know and delve more about investment matter of Indonesia, let us warmly welcome Mr. Bahlil Lahadalia, who will deliver the presentation. The time is yours, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Yang saya hormati Bapak Ibu Menteri dan seluruh narasumber, Ketua Umum Kadin yang saya hormati. Izinkan saya untuk menyampaikan beberapa perkembangan terkait dengan investasi di Indonesia kaitannya dengan pertumbuhan ekonomi nasional. Kita semua tahu bahwa pandemi COVID-19 ini betul-betul melanda hampir semua dunia, termasuk di Indonesia. Dan karena itu persoalan pandemi COVID ini tidak hanya persoalan kesehatan, tapi juga masuk kepada persoalan ekonomi yang berdampak pada persoalan sosial. 2021 adalah di mana kami Kementerian Investasi diberikan target realisasi investasi sebesar 900 triliun. Dan hari ini sudah mampu kita realisasikan sebesar 49,6% dari total target 900 triliun tersebut. Di mana dari 49,6% tersebut untuk foreign direct investment kita itu sekitar 50,2%, sementara PMDN kita itu 49,8%. Dengan komposisi investasi antara Jawa dan luar Jawa, ini Jawa sekitar 49%, sementara luar Jawa 51%. Apa yang saya menyampaikan Bapak Ibu semua, sekalipun di era pandemi COVID-19 di hampir semua dunia, foreign direct investment-nya itu dalam beberapa kajian survei lembaga dunia yang dikeluarkan itu turun 30-40%. Kita di Indonesia turunnya tidak lebih dari 7,5%. Trust dunia kepada kita sebenarnya semakin baik. Apalagi Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja sudah kita selesaikan dan sekarang sudah kita implementasikan sekalipun belum maksimal. Yang kedua, ternyata juga kekuatan investasi di domestik kita kalau kita urus dengan baik itu cukup memberikan satu opportunity yang sangat luar biasa. Kenapa? Di tahun 2020 ketika FDI kita turun, ternyata yang menutupi kejomblangan itu adalah PMDN kita. Masalahnya adalah memang kita akui bahwa masih banyak investasi-investasi yang sudah clear tapi tidak tereksekusi karena terjadi persoalan tanah, tumpang tindih kepentingan A dan B. Nah, dari total investasi mangkrak yang kami lakukan ketika kami masuk di pemerintahan pertama sekitar 708 triliun itu sudah hampir selesai. Sekarang sudah hampir 600 triliun. Inilah kemudian mengambil contoh dari kejadian ini, maka kami dari Kementerian Investasi sekarang mengawal investor itu end to end dari hulu ke hilir dan kita membentuk tim. Jadi turun mengecek satu-satu. Nah, tidak bisa dinaifkan. Menurut data BPS, pertumbuhan ekonomi nasional kita pada kuartal kedua sebesar 7,07% tersebut, kontribusi yang paling besar diantaranya adalah konsumsi dan yang kedua adalah investasi. Dan kalau kita melihat dari beberapa perkembangan hasil survei, konsumsi ini sudah stuck. Maka tinggal investasi yang harus kita dorong. Nah, disinilah kemudian kita membutuhkan satu kolaborasi yang baik. Di sini ada Ibu Menkyu, Pak Menko juga tetap mengedepankan kita. Nah, dalam konteks itu OSS sudah terimplementasikan dan sekarang kita lebih mendorong pada investasi. Yang pertama adalah hilirisasi sebagai bentuk penerjemahan daripada transformasi ekonomi. Tidak bisa lagi kita dengan cara-cara lama hanya mengirim bahan baku. Lingkungan tetap kita harus jaga. Karena itu untuk hilirisasi, khususnya nikel dan akan merambah kepada persoalan lain, di bawah arahan Bapak Presiden dan kami sudah diskusi sama Pak Menko, bahwa tetap ini kita harus menjadikan sebagai industri yang minimal 70% nilai tambahnya sudah harus masuk di Indonesia. Tidak bisa lagi kita main seperti lama-lama. Kalau lama-lama itu bukan, itu jual tanah air itu namanya. Nah, ini adalah sebuah komitmen kita bersama dalam kita melakukan itu. Yang kedua adalah persoalan insentif dan persoalan kawasan industri. Kita juga ada beberapa alternatif kawasan industri di Batang. Itu semua infrastrukturnya sudah siap. Silakan masuk ke sana, tanahnya pasti lebih murah, saya jamin. Dan izinnya akan diurus oleh pemerintah, biar clear. Dan yang ketiga adalah bagi investor yang memang melakukan investasi di luar Pulau Jawa, seperti daerah-daerah yang susah, seperti di NTT, di Kalimantan, di Maluku, di Papua, atau sebagian di Sumatera, itu pasti akan diberikan satu privilege tersendiri dalam konteks insentif. Selama dia adalah mendorong kepada subsidi impor atau menciptakan nilai tambah yang baru. Saya pikir demikian, terima kasih. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom. Om Santi Santi Om Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Bahlil Lahadalia, for the presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as a country with many touristic sites, Indonesia is greatly impacted by the downfall of flow of tourists to Indonesia and in around the country due to restrictions on our mobility. Now, hence, this triggers new strategies. And as timely as we speak about that, Indonesia is now reopening itself to the international tourists. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us now present Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Sandiaga Uno, for his presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Warm greetings from Malang, East Java, to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure and honor for me to take part in the Trade, Tourism and Investment Forum on TEI Digital Edition 2021, with the big theme Reviving Global Trade through Strengthening Regional Economic Partnership, hosted by the Ministry of Trade, Republic Indonesia, headed the Minister, my good friend, Mr. Muhammad Lutfi. As we all know, that COVID-19 has caused huge losses, especially to the tourism and creative economy sectors all around the world. In Indonesia, the international tourist arrivals falls up to 75% in 2020, causing the drop in international receipt up to 80%. Domestic tourists are recovering but slowing down due to the mobility restrictions policy in the last 3 months. Most of the creative economic sector also experienced negative growth except for the applications, game developers, televisions, and radio subsectors. On the other hand, key players in digital markets prospered during the crisis and most demonstrated a positive share performance. The pandemic has changed tourist behavior to the extreme, leading to travel trends that are more personalized, customized, localized, and smaller in size, while facing FUCA situations, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We are now entering the new tourism economy, which is characterized by hygiene, low touch, low mobility, less crowd, towards quality tourism. In these conditions, the digitizations of the tourism industry is a necessity to meet the demands of tourists for a contactless and seamless experience. The Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy advocates 3 fundamental strategic directions, namely innovations, adaptations, and collaborations to boost recovery strategy and to rebuild better. This direction has to be executed with strategic actions. We call it gercep, act fast, geber, move together, and gaspol, explore all potentials to protect jobs in the sector. I am very optimistic that tourism and creative economy sectors can bounce back, survive, and then thrive in the future. There are a lot of opportunities for investments to further develop Indonesia's natural landscapes, beauty, cultures, and creativity. The government has committed to make tourism and creative economy a pillar of the country's economic strategy to achieve more rapid and inclusive growth. We continue to develop 5 super priority tourist destinations into environmentally sustainable attractions while supporting an inclusive tourism economy. Improvement in the investment climate are also being made. There are several forms of incentives that can be utilized for tourism sector. Investments such as tax allowance, import duty exemptions, exemptions of entry fees for yachts, and super deductions tax for the tourism sectors include travel business, hospitality, marine tourism, and ecotourism, hotels, and restaurants. We would like to ensure that investors who enter the tourism sectors will have business agreements that are profitable and support Indonesia's development. Eventually, I take this opportunity to congratulate and succeed to all those involved and participating in this activity. We hope that this event can provide benefits and impacts on future economic recovery, especially the tourism and creative economy sectors. I thank you all, and may God bless all of us who are attending this event. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Sandiaga Uno, for the presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, the Trade, Tourism and Investment Forum this year also invite honorary guests, speakers from the World Bank. So it is a great honor that today we are also joined by World Bank Managing Director of Development Policy and Partnership, who was once the Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, Madam Mari Elka Pangestu. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Madam Mari Elka Pangestu.
Thank you, Minister Lutfi, for your invitation to speak at the Trade Expo Indonesia, Trade, Tourism and Investment Forum. I'm glad to be back here and speaking with you at this critical juncture for Indonesia, the East Asia and Pacific region. I was asked to speak about trade recovery and also about the role of strengthening regional economic integration. So let me start by looking at the trade recovery story. Trade has declined steadily at the start of the pandemic, but recovered within 6 months to go back to pre-pandemic levels. Our projections show that global trade growth is likely to rebound to 9.2% in 2021 and decline a little bit down to 6.7% in 2022. And the recovery has been uneven, with quicker rebound and recovery very much related to the extent of vaccine rollout in the country, as well as whether the country was better integrated or part of a global value chain. And East Asia is one of the regions which has experienced strong rebound. The projections have also been dampened by the supply bottlenecks that we are experiencing due to disruption in logistics and shortages of containers. This is causing some uncertainties, and we will have to see how these disruptions will play out in the forthcoming period. But what is important to note is that countries which have stronger market integration and being part of GVCs did recover stronger and quicker. So this means that keeping markets open, diversifying market access, and in the longer run, diversification of sourcing and products will need to be part of a country's and company's strategy. Indonesia and its companies stand to gain and have the opportunity to be part of this diversification strategy. From a policy perspective, this is about maintaining trade flows through domestic reforms on trade and investment openness and facilitation. And it is also about strengthening regional economic integration. Let me first talk about the importance of reducing trade costs through trade facilitation measures. A recent estimate done by the bank suggests that trade costs are higher for emerging markets. Tariffs only make up 1/14 of that cost. The remaining comes from two major sources: inefficient logistics and infrastructure, and secondly, complex trade procedures and excessive non-tariff barriers at the border. So a cost of stimulus would be to simplify these trade procedures and use digital technologies to have more effective and efficient clearance processes. Let me now turn to the role of regional economic integration. This region, East Asia and the Pacific, has a long tradition of regional integration. Despite not having deep trade agreements, the region has grown in terms of being economically integrated and participating in global value chains. The trade agreements that have evolved in the region, such as the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, the ASEAN +1 FTAs with China, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and India, and various bilateral agreements did lead to lower tariffs, but was relatively weak in the commitments in areas such as services, investment, and intellectual property rights, and also did not have any environmental protection elements. This, nevertheless, did lead to the development of production networks and global value chains. But moving forward, with increased need for diversification and the evolving and changing nature of global value chains, which will increasingly include services and more value added, it will be key to have deeper regional trade agreements. What does this mean? What does it mean to have broader and deeper regional integration? It means to go beyond goods trade liberalization and shallow opening up of services and investment. It is about moving away from just tariffs and other border measures. So this is already happening. While the average regional agreement 70 years ago covered only 8 policy areas, mostly tariffs and other border measures, in recent years they've averaged 17. And what does deep trade agreements constitute? What does it mean to go broader and deeper? There are 3 types of provisions in these deep trade agreements. First, those aimed at promoting economic integration, that is, ensuring more open flow of goods and services, competition policy, investment, movement of capital and labor across borders, and intellectual property rights. Second, transparency and clear policies on non-tariff measures, such as standards, domestic regulations, rules of origin, and trade remedies, such as anti-dumping. Third, these agreements can also pursue other goals, such as environmental protection. The recent emphasis on modernizing trade agreements in the region is therefore timely and welcome, and will have the following potential benefits. Deep regional trade agreements can be a potential tool of integration and reform, particularly for developing countries. The deepest trade agreements boost trade between members by over 40%. This is roughly double that of the shallow trade agreements. Secondly, recent research has revealed that trade within participants of regional trade agreements was relatively more resilient to the impact of COVID-19 compared to those which are not having agreements. So that deep regional trade agreements have actually provided relatively better trade stability and really shown that it is more resilient than those that are not part of a trade agreement or being part of a shallow trade agreement. Third, trade facilitation provisions in deep trade agreements have also helped export performance in global value chain. Fourth, deep trade agreements are also vehicles for global value chain integration and upgrading from commodity trade and limited manufacturing to advanced manufacturing and services and to innovation. Indonesia has actually liberalized more than 85% of its tariff lines under existing regional agreements. And the content and coverage of Indonesian regional agreements has evolved over time from AFTA to the ASEAN Plus One agreements and now to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement or RCEP. But there is room to deepen and existing the new agreements. If you take RCEP, which involves 15 countries, ASEAN and China, Japan, Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, there is a lot of opportunity with deeper integration to help integrate Indonesia into regional value chains, attract more investment, and create more jobs. So deeper economic integration will be important. For example, most economies in East Asia and the Pacific region already have low tariffs, and further reductions, as under RCEP, are unlikely to bring major gains. Most of the gains will come from reduction in non-tariff measures and in the implementation of common rules of origin. When simulating reduction of non-tariff measures, a World Bank study found gains for the region of up to 0.21% by 2035, and with a common set of rules of origin when a common set of rules of origin is considered, gains in real income could go up as much as 0.5%. In addition to economic integration, deep regional trade agreements increasingly pursue non-trade policy objectives, such as the protection of the environment. Linking trade and non-trade goals in trade agreements can be justified when there are links between different policy areas. But we know that there are also concerns that these additional objectives can also hide a protectionist intent. Recent World Bank research indicates that provisions that pursue non-trade policy objectives, such as the environment, can be effective. Forest-related provisions in RTAs prevented approximately 7,500 square kilometers of deforestation from 2003 to 2014. This is greater than the entire forested area of a country like Belgium or Ireland. Furthermore, competitiveness in the near future will be increasingly defined by sustainable supply chains, and RTAs need to also adapt and introduce trade and environment measures that are appropriate. Let me conclude by saying that trade will be key for sustainable recovery, and we need to continue strengthening regional economic integration and continue to undertake reforms that will ensure that Indonesia and the region can benefit from the growth of trade and GVCs, which in turn will increase job creation and help the development of the region. Thank you, and I wish you all a successful Trade Expo Indonesia.
Thank you very much, Madam Mari El Kapangestu, speaking on behalf of the World Bank. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Trade, Tourism and Investment Forum is intending to be a media for delivering the latest key policies as we exchange further on ideas, thoughts, and solutions from relevant ministries and institutions from within the country. Let us now warmly welcome Acting Deputy Minister for International Economic Cooperation of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Edi Priyo Pambudi. The time is yours.
Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished participants, good afternoon everyone. I hope you are all doing well. At the outset, I would like to express my appreciation to the Ministry of Trade for holding this year's Trade, Tourism and Investment Forum in the digital format. In this occasion, allow me to present several recent economic developments and policies that have been carried out by the government of the Republic of Indonesia in response to the current economic challenges, including the actions taken by the government to strengthen trade, tourism, and investment. Now I will summarize the policies that have been put in place to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and the important structural reform which we are doing to ensure that we may fully recover and leapfrog economically once the pandemic has died down. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, the pandemic still remains Indonesia's greatest challenge, both to our health sectors and to our economy. The continued human costs and suffering as well as profound socio-economic impact of the COVID-19 is of great concern to all of us. Therefore, appropriate government's policy have been introduced to avoid deeper economic pressure while controlling the spread of the pandemic at the same time. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic that has impacted Indonesia since 2020, our economy still managed to grow by 7.07% in the second quarter of 2021. In fact, Indonesian economic growth was higher than several peer countries that have released their growth figure, such as Vietnam, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia. The government's commitment in handling the COVID-19 pandemic and effort toward economic recovery was key in boosting outputs in the second quarter. This commitment has driven household consumption to grow 5.93%. The source of economic growth in second quarter 2021 was driven by significant growth in all components such as export-import, government expenditures, investment, and household consumption. This improvement in domestic demand was also responded by the private sector by increasing their production capacity so that all sectors have grown quite positively. In the first semester of 2021, various leading indicators has continued to improve. The impact of tighter mobility restriction from July until August 2021 is estimated to be only temporary, as reflected in manufacturing activity, which began to rebound in August 2021. From the external side, export continues to increase so that the trade balance was in surplus for 16 consecutive months, and foreign exchange reserves are high and stood at 144.8 billion US dollar. In the banking sectors, all indicators are quite stable. The performance of the Indonesian capital market is also above the emerging market average. This shows Indonesian economic resilience of the domestic and external sector in face of the challenges. Taking account of this development and the strategy that has been prepared by the government, we expect the economy will continue to accelerate in the fourth quarter of 2021. Our economy is projected to grow in the range of 3.7 until 4.5% in 2021 and at around 5.2% in 2022. These projections are in line with the expectation of global economic recovery. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, in achieving our growth targets will ultimately depend on community and all stakeholders' participation involved. Their role is crucial in our efforts to strengthen the effectiveness of the measures introduced to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, the government will continue strengthening its efforts to contain the pandemic and to ensure the effectiveness in prevention and handling of the pandemic throughout all regions in Indonesia. In line with our efforts to contain the spread of the virus, the government's vaccination program is also up and running and aims to inoculate 181.5 million people by 2022 in order to create a herd immunity of 70% of the population. At the same time, the government have also strengthened its testing and tracing measures as well as restricting people's mobility and public activities or PPKM, while strengthening the necessary health protocols. The government have also introduced measures to cater and enhance health service facilities. With the decline of the COVID-19 cases, the government has also taken measures to further prevent the spread of COVID-19 in public utilities and facilities such as schools, some of which have started face-to-face learning, as well as shopping malls, cinemas, and public offices by introducing an online application called Peduli Lindungi. Just by a tap on the button. Recently, we also trying to reopen one of our famous tourist destination, Bali, by enforcing strict regulatory measures. All this meant to strengthen our economy while controlling the spread of the pandemic. The current situation shows that daily confirmed case and death have declined sharply, with 96.5% of cases have been fully recovered. Case reproductive rate is most islands have gone down below 1, except for some provinces. More than 165 million doses of COVID-19 has been administered, and almost 50% of target have been partially vaccinated. The daily vaccination rate is accelerated to 2 million doses per day by available vaccines currently in place. Data of Nikkei Asia COVID Recovery Index shows that Indonesia achieved a total score 54.5 and was acknowledged as the highest index in Southeast Asia as of 30 September 2021. In support of our efforts, the government refocused the state budget to increase the size of the 2021 National Economic Recovery Program to 744.77 trillion rupiahs. This will support the optimization of the PPKM implementation to support various social protection programs, such as accelerating the disbursements of cash social assistance, increasing the number of beneficiaries, as well as the benefit of the basic food cap, continuing the electricity discount program, as well as with subsidy assistance. The program will continue through next year with an allocated budget of 321.2 trillion rupiahs to anticipate the risk of expanding impact from COVID-19. To support those impacted, additional support is given through the pre-employment card program with its online course program to upskill and reskill for those seeking more job opportunity. Currently, the program has received around 3.8 million recipients with total incentive of 7.27 trillion rupiahs throughout 2021 in 515 districts or cities. Moreover, we have also strengthened efforts to support access to finance for MSMEs through the People Business Credit or CUR. The government also continue to encourage the integration of various social assistance programs with MSMEs financing, including core financing to increase the productivities of MSMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may already aware of, the government of Indonesia has introduced and enacted the Omnibus Law on job creation to support structural transformation, increase investment, and accelerate economic growth. By enacting this law and its implementing regulation, the government has revised and scaled down and minimized many regulations, reformed business licenses, and reformulated the investment priority list, supported through the updated OSS system centered on a risk-based approach, launched in August of this year. There are 246 priority businesses fields that are open to investment and are accompanied by fiscal and non-fiscal incentives. The government's focus has always been to safeguard and shield workers, firms, and MSMEs' job and incomes from the negative impact induced by the pandemic by creating a better business environment and investment climate. The Omnibus Law represents our best efforts to transform our economy for the better. In line with our commitment towards sustainable recovery and efforts to protect our environments, the government has finalized its deliberation with the Indonesian Parliament in early October 2021 to establish a carbon pricing policy. The introduction of this policy will drive the development of carbon markets, technological innovation, and investment that are more efficient, low carbon, and environmental friendly. This policy also aims to accelerate the transition into low carbon green economy activities. By this, we hope to achieve greenhouse gases emission reduction target in the medium and also long term as well. We are heading toward COP26 in Glasgow. At the same time, we will continue to develop our infrastructures program through the National Strategic Project, or PSN program, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. We expect that this program will improve connectivity and reduce logistic costs. A range of support has also been provided through 7 government regulations derived from the Job Creation Law to provide facilities in PSN. In closing financial gap normally associated with infrastructure project, the government has established Indonesia Investment Authority, or INA, which is up and running at full speed. INA will play a role in developing investment opportunities in various key sectors so that they can support sustainable development. Investment managed by INA are expected to increase productivity, support job creation, and promote the transition to a new economy. An additional capital has been earmarked to support the optimization of INA for the economy. And last but not least, as an active global player, Indonesia will assume the G20 presidency next year, starting in December of this year, with the theme Recover Together, Recover Stronger. Supported by 5 priority pillars, built on the legacy of previous presidencies, our presidency aims to increase resilience and stability, promote productivity, ensuring sustainable and inclusive growth, enable environment and multi-stakeholders partnership, and forge a more stronger collective global leadership. We hope that our presidency will bring not just benefits to the people, but will bring countries more closer and stronger when recovering from the pandemic, and in turn will create stability in all regions of the world. To sum up and in closing, the government of Indonesia has enacted significant strategic steps and policies to boost national economic recovery and expedite structural reform with the aim to make business more easier, more sustainable, more fairer, and of course more profitable. more policies will certainly come in place in the future to enhance our economy, as well are we always adapting to new situations and new circumstances when the need arises. With all this positive development, I encourage to all foreign business participants to trade, to invest, and to do more business with Indonesia, as opportunities are abundant and plentiful. And we will continue to ensure that you will gain more benefit while making sure to keep our economic transformation on the right positive trajectory. While I look forward to the day when we can meet each other in person in this forum one day, let's extend the best wishes for this online edition of the Trade, Tourism and Investment Forum, as well as the whole series of events during the Trade Expo Indonesia 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edi Priyo-Pambudi. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as frontliners of business on various sectors, it is also important that we understand perspectives and thoughts from business actors, in which, on this occasion, is presented by the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Deputy General on International Relation of Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Madam Shinta Kamdani. The time and place is yours.
Greetings from Jakarta. It is an honor for me to represent the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry as well as the business community in Indonesia to address all of you today. Just like business communities all over the world, Kadin Indonesia and the Indonesian business community cannot give more emphasis of how crucial openness to trade, invest, and travel across countries and mobility are the heart and soul of the business growth. Without widest possible openness and liberty to trade, to invest, and to travel, business growth will be stunned, and consequently, it will also impact the economic growth. Obviously, if we want to recover and resume our growth trajectory in near future, national, regional, and global economic leaders in trade and investment need to collaborate in reopening the global economy for a greater trade, investment, and mobility across economy to its pre-pandemic level, and facilitate business, trade, invest, and travel more than it ever has been before. On Indonesia's part, I would like to testify that Indonesia has contributed our part in reopening our national economy, as well as our trade, investment, and mobility with our economic partners, primarily our partners in the region, as part of our effort to revitalize the national and global economy after COVID. I'm proud to say that after the 3 months long struggle to control the Delta variant, Indonesia has now successfully managed the pandemic within our border. As of 20th October, Indonesia has about 900 daily new cases nationally, compared to more than 50,000 in mid-July, making Indonesia as country with the lowest COVID contagion rate in the region. COVID contagion, hospitalization, and death have been in continuous decline in the past 3 months as our vaccinated population increases. We are still imposed pandemic measure, but within Java and Bali, our economic centers' mobility restriction have been set on the lowest level of mobility. Thus, production activities, domestic trade, and school activities are getting back to normal with strict observance to national health protocols. Indonesia also making the most of pandemic by speeding up our sectoral reform agenda to improve Indonesia investment climate competitiveness through the enactment of the Omnibus Law on Job Creation last year. By now, Indonesia Investment Positive List, which give access to foreign investors to invest all business sectors in Indonesia, are now in effect. And Indonesia investment licensing also has been effectively reformed that MSME and business activity with low risk of public and environmental disorders can operate immediately without much investment licensing nitty-gritty that usually takes a long time to process. Government services for business and investors at national level has been more transparent and made accessible online since last year. Foreign business can even contact relevant ministries by email or have a guided services online if you have questions or having difficulty in understanding or processing licensing in Indonesia. primarily through our online single submission system. We are working to develop the online to be more available across Indonesia instead of merely a national and specific economic zone. It may take time as Indonesia is still developing our digital infrastructure beyond Java and Bali. Our reform tax policies also give a lot of leverage for foreign investors to enjoy tax benefit and many non-fiscal facility when investing in priority business sector in special economic zone in Indonesia. Foreign investor can even request to be treated as business in special economic zone if you meet certain criteria. In addition, Indonesia continues to keep our oath to open our economy to global economic player foreign business. Just a few days ago, Indonesia announced border opening to 19 countries which have met WHO criteria. So foreign business from these countries can travel and create greater access to Indonesia and vice versa. We are looking forward to adding more countries in our list so that border will open to as many foreign business as possible. Since last December, Indonesia joins the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP agreement and entering many other FTAs with many countries. The RCEP will especially be a game changer to connect Indonesian business and businesses from ASEAN and our 5 dialogue partners, China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. RCEP will open Indonesia and RCEP countries' market access among the contracting countries to the fullest, with more than 95% of our traded goods can enjoy tariff liberalization. RCEP also opened greater market access for investment and trade in services in this region. This means RCEP investor will have greater leverage to invest to trade services in Indonesia beyond the leverage we provided you under Indonesia Omnibus Law. RCEP in the first trade agreement whereby Indonesia create a commitment to facilitate MSME and e-commerce trade and investment. Studies suggest that RCEP will increase our regional GDP up to 137 billion US dollar, and Indonesia is set to reap the benefit from it through regional export expansion and increased role in regional global value chain forward and backward linkages. Although the RCEP is not yet in effect, the agreement has been processed by our parliament and set to be ratified by end of this year or in 2022 at the latest. RCEP will be complementary to Indonesia's other FTA for deeper economic integration in the region. As an example, Indonesia's commitment to facilitate e-commerce trade and trade in services under RCEP is complementary to the IT software and online gaming services corporation that Indonesia created under the Indonesia-Korea CIPA. This is in addition to about 12 other FTA that Indonesia has in effect today, including the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, EICP, and the Indonesia-EFTA EFTA Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which can be utilized effectively to trade and to invest with Australian and EFTA countries' businesses since August last year. I have to say that the implementation of this FTA gives a significant boost to Indonesian business confidence to export and to trade more with the global economic players in the region and beyond. So much so that Indonesia export does not suffer significantly throughout the pandemic and can contribute to our economic recovery by recreating the record high trade surplus for the past 18 months consecutively. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has indeed done so much to reopen our economy and to invigorate the global economy to get out of this crisis. But no matter how much Indonesia as a nation contribute, Indonesia is still only one country among hundreds of countries in the world. If we want to recover the global economy in your home country's economy, I believe we cannot do it on our own, despite various projections to global recovery have been promising. Yes, we have the global trade volume continuously rebounding since quarter third of 2020 UNCTAD latest global trade update also gives a very promising outlook of global trade volume recovery, where global trade is projected to rebound faster than the two previous global economic crises. Yes, the global economy is heading toward a strong recovery with a projected expansion at 5.6% in 2021, dubbed as the strongest post-recession recovery in 80 years, according to World Bank latest global economic prospects. But if we look closely, you will realize how imbalanced the recovery is and how fragile the recovery may be. The current recovery is fueled largely by rigorous spending for pandemic recovery in developed countries and strong performance of major economic players that overshadowed the performance of the rest of the world. Many underlying issues which are exacerbated by pandemic, such as unilateralism and global supply chain disruption, are still not properly addressed. To date, access to COVID vaccine is still concentrated in developed countries, making economic recovery in developing countries and LDC slower. Businesses all over the world, including Indonesian business, still suffer from global supply chain and trade logistic chaos that make trading across border 3 to 5 times more inefficient compared to the pre-pandemic level. Trade in services and investments across borders are lagging way behind the trade in goods recovery due to the mobility restriction measure related to the pandemic. Ambition towards green and carbon neutral economy adding even more difficulty for developing countries to trade, as countries are more focused on banning or taxing carbon intensive business activities, lagging in providing sufficient financing, investment and business climate support to accelerate the business transition and improve the scalability of renewable energy in global energy mix. This not only threatens us by immediate global energy crisis that hacks up global prices on coal to 400% and prices on crude oil up to 65% until the end of the year. Although economic digitalization, innovation, and accelerated technology adoption are opportunity to accelerate recovery and growth development, gap and the lack of international coordination to trade across borders through electronic means create a greater global economic disparity. Global economic leaders indeed must play their roles in collaborating to reopen and reinvigorate trade, investment and travel across the globe. But I believe business community also must do our share of the job, namely by building network to get in contact as much as possible to promote our business to trade with one another, to partner in investment and business innovation, and to create transaction after transaction to keep the business and the economy run against all odds and all challenges we face today. Thus, I hope you can utilize the Forum and Trade Expo Indonesia 2021 as your stepping stone to connect, to trade, to invest and to partner with one another. Kadin Indonesia will be happy to facilitate you to connect further with Indonesian business community. If you are in Australia, Kadin Indonesia can assist you further through Indonesia Trading House Australia. Finally, I'm happy to say that Indonesia has officially received the presidency of Business 20 or B20 from Italy. B20 Indonesia will collaborate with G20 leaders to reopen the economy more than we have now and to assure that the economy in the post-pandemic will be strong, innovative and sustainable for all countries, developing and developed countries alike. B20 Indonesia Task Force on Trade and Investment will address the issue I mentioned before throughout our presidency to ensure that the global economic recovery can be speedy, strong, sustainable and equitable for all. It will include giving support to revitalize the multilateral trading system through the WTO reform, rolling back pandemic restriction, increasing access to vaccine and other public goods for pandemic control, improving trade facilitation through electronic exchanges, creating global governance to facilitate digital trade, reducing red tapes and facilitate investment by speeding up WTO investment facilitation agreement. lowering costs of doing business and improving financing for MSME, women entrepreneurs, and green transition, as well as improving the global value chain disorder by promoting homogeneity of strengths, standards, and cooperation in the global trade. As I mentioned, Indonesia cannot do it on our own. We want global business community to join in our efforts to create a strong, inclusive, and sustainable global economy that benefits all. Thus, Kadin Indonesia, as host organizer of B20 Indonesia presidency, will welcome and invite all the global business community to join us in taking action towards economic recovery and sustainable growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Shinta Kamdani from Kadin Indonesia. And ladies and gentlemen, we all have finally arrived at the end of the event. We all have passed the whole series of events this afternoon together. We have also listened to the speeches and presentations where we heard the thoughts as well as ideas and key policies presented by ministries related to trade, investment, as well as tourism in this country, and with honorary speakers as well from the Philippines and Singapore, and from the international community as well, from the from the World Bank, and from Kadin Indonesia. And once again, we express our deepest gratitude to the ladies and gentlemen and all invited guests who have been willing to participate in today's event. And don't forget, once again, would like to invite you to visit www.tradeexpoindonesia.com website for online interactive, which will be held from today on, October the 21st until November 4th, 2021. Once again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget to stick with the health protocols, wear a mask, keep your distance, and wash your hands. I am Rahma Alia. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.